What's up, everybody? How y'all doing today? We're talking about the instructional design portfolio today. I just want to, talk a little bit about the portfolio, the importance of it, some of the things I experienced in the field when I first graduated from my master's degree in ID to what I've seen happen over the last 17 years to now actually hiring people in that position and being able to look and, what do I expect out of a portfolio and how important is it? All right. So let's start out with portfolio has become this thing in instructional design that is now, one of the most important aspects of hiring someone. I've been talking to a significant amount of companies, ranging from, the FANG, which is like, Google, Amazon, Netflix, like top tech companies, Fortune 100, to smaller firms, to even like, a small consulting firm like which I run a small consulting firm. So, I've been, you know, dealing with the portfolio for a long time. So let's talk about the importance of it. What do I expect to see in a portfolio and how it can help you or hurt you find a job? Um, and I want to talk about some of the drawbacks and disadvantages of a portfolio as well. So let me start with when I graduated from my master's program. Now, remember, I graduated in 2003, and a lot has changed in the field in a sense. In that, so when I graduated, people didn't put together a portfolio. I was probably the only student in my graduate program that had a portfolio. I had two portfolios. I had a CD, like a disc, a DVD, actually, I guess, that I would send to companies or attach with my resume. And I would also email that version along with them. I had it up on the web on my website. And then I had a binder that had screenshots of all the different stuff that I had done, so that when I actually went into an interview, because sometimes you go into an interview and you're in like an HR room or something like that, and there just isn't a computer there. You're just at like a desk or even a lunch or something like that. And I could give them my binder and they could flip through and kind of see all the work that they had done. So did that help me find a job? Well, let me put it this way. So um, I had several companies who were giving me offers because of my portfolio. They said that I seemed extra motivated because I was one of the only students who was graduating at the time with one. And they saw all the different projects that I had done because I had done so much work for so many clients as a student. I was out there seeking freelance work and doing a lot of ID work for my university. So I had all these, pieces of training that I had developed. I had all these websites and graphics and all this cool different stuff that I had developed. And I had examples of, me developing in PowerPoint, Flash, Director, Authorware, Toolbook, HTML. Those were all the development tools at the time when I was a newly minted instructional designer. So that was kind of cool. And I was glad to see all of that and have that happen. But let's talk about kind of how that's transitioned and where I've seen the portfolio go. What does my current portfolio look like that I use? Now, remember, like I'm obviously a professor and I run a consulting firm. But when I go to clients, I need to show them my consulting firm's work. So I'll talk about what I actually do when I do that. All right. So portfolio in general. So right now in the field, it's pretty much expected that you have a portfolio. It is, as I said, every employer looks for it and they want to see it. I go on any forum like LinkedIn, Reddit, or anywhere in the ID section, and everyone's like, for a job, you got to have a portfolio. You got to have a portfolio. Let me talk about, let me actually start with one of the downfalls of that. So here's my take as someone who runs a consulting firm. I need to see that someone can develop and articulate or captivate, probably both, because we use both all the time in our projects. And we're doing a lot with Articulate Rise right now. But all of those pieces of software are pretty easy to use in that, we're talking about a software that's just a little harder than PowerPoint. So if I can see in their portfolio or even just on their resume that they have experience with Articulate and Captivate, that's all I really care about, because I tell them what I want them to develop when they're working on these projects. I do like to see an example of something they put together, even if it's just a couple screenshots, just so I know they can actually do it. But I'm not so like, I don't expect this portfolio to have like all these projects and I have to go through it and stuff like that. It doesn't need to be extensive. I guess that's the one interesting thing I find about the portfolio, is that a portfolio for instructional designers does not need to have 3,000 projects in it. I can have a couple screenshots. And I'll give you an example. Let me tell you what my consulting firm uses for our portfolio, what ours actually consists of. So our portfolio actually consists of, so first of all, we have a website where they can go to and look at some sample stuff. But when I actually meet with a client, if they want to take a look at my portfolio, it's actually just like 4 or 5 screenshots, and that's it. It's just a couple screenshots showing them, and each screen is like, one example screenshot is like mobile-based training, and it shows some like 2 or 3 screenshots of mobile-based training. Another one is like instructor-led, where I talk about, like, I have some screenshots of like, an instructor guidebook, student handbook, job aid, that kind of stuff. I have another PowerPoint screen that has a picture of, like Articulate, Captivate, like normal computer-based training. Then I have a screen that's game-based learning and shows a picture of a game we've developed. And then I have another screen that is video-based training, where I have like 2 or 3 screenshots of video-based training. That's all my portfolio is. I don't allow them to access any, they're not allowed to go in any of those training programs. You got to remember. So when you have a portfolio, if you're showing me stuff that you've developed at another company, I'm going to be concerned, because you don't own that stuff and you can't show other people it. So I don't expect people to go out and just develop like nonsense stuff that is meaningless, that they've like developed on like a topic they found interesting, and send that to me. Send me a couple screenshots of stuff you've developed from various real clients. Just take out or a shot that has no identifying information on it of their company, just so I can see that you can develop. That's all I really need to see for your development skills. The rest of what I care about is that you can actually be an instructional designer. I can tell right away in 5 minutes of an interview whether you can design and whether you can develop. It's so easy to tell. For that portfolio section, I just need to see that you've put some stuff together. It's super important to have it, but it's not the be-all, end-all. The be-all, end-all is that conversation I have with you. You can send me a great portfolio and I can talk to you in 5 minutes and realize you didn't build it, or I don't want you to work with me. So, you've got to be able to, it's more than that, So I want to stress the importance of that, but I also want to say, like, the portfolio, I think some people picture that they need to have like this 15 projects all built out, like these, I don't know, minute to hour long trainings in this portfolio. That's not what an ID portfolio needs to be whatsoever. As I said, I have a PowerPoint with its 5 screens that has pictures of different things I've put together. And that's all I need to do. That gets me clients. Clients love that. Now, let me talk about what happens after I send that to a client and we meet with them. So usually a client will say to me, hey, and this is in the process of getting a proposal, so I don't have the work yet, but they'll say, we really want a tutorial that walks through a piece of software. We're still in this like analysis phase, right, where I'm trying to figure out what they need, what their problem is, but I don't have the work yet, so I'm still selling them my company, right? So at that point, I will say to them, let me show you an example of a software simulation training that I've developed before, and walk them through it. I tell them it can't be recorded, and I'll walk them through something that we have developed before. So I have a website so let's talk about, so that's everything that I do for showing them work, right? I've got a website they can go through. I've got this PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint's usually all that's needed. It has 5 screens, which goes through, just some screenshots of different types of instructional design training. And then if they want to, when I know more about what they're specifically looking for, I will walk them through some stuff that I've developed where we meet, via Zoom or whatever, or pre-COVID, maybe meet over lunch or whatever, and I'll bring my laptop or iPad and just show them, walk them through some of the stuff that I've developed. But that's all that you really need for a portfolio. Now, I will say, as an instructional designer, I believe that you should all have a website, and your website should be on the top of your resume. You can take a look at my website, and you'll see that on my resume, I have my personal website. And while I don't actually have any portfolio stuff on my personal website, if you clicked the Captivate link on my website, it'll take you to a bunch of Captivate tutorials I've developed on YouTube. So, you can always see that kind of stuff from me. And I'm not necessarily applying personally for instructional design contracts. That's my company. So my portfolio is over there on the company site. And in fact, it's actually hidden so that, we send it the private link with login and password to clients so that they could go in and see that. That's the portfolio. The big disadvantage of the portfolio is that if you don't show good stuff, you might not get hired. And if you don't show all the right stuff, you might not get hired. That's why in my PowerPoint, screens that I have, I show an example of game-based training, instructor-led training, mobile-based training, computer-based training, and video-based training. And each of those is like each of those screens, like the computer-based training screen is like 3 or 4 different screenshots just in the corner of the screen to show, 3 or 4 different kinds of computer-based training. And someone just asked a question. They created a portfolio website with some personal projects. Having the portfolio is nice. I mean, you've got to show something. And that's the whole key there, is that you have to have something there. You have to have something to show them. And I think that if you don't have anything professionally done, then that's where I do recommend you create the personal projects or use the projects you created in your classes as part of your grad program or whatever will count and help. But you have to have something. You have to be able to show me, like, really quick, can I see? Like, so let me tell you, like, when I'm looking at a resume, when I'm hiring for a contract. Now, I will admit up front that when I am hiring for a project, me and my partner each are professors at master's programs. So a lot of times we're hiring alumni that we already know. So I don't need to see anything because I worked with this person for multiple years while they were working on their master's degree. So I'm able to just hire them. But sometimes that's not the case. I can't find someone from my alumni network that is willing to do the project, or just no one's available at the time, right? So what do we do? How do we look through resumes? What do we look for? So first of all, when we do put out an ad that we are looking for contracts, we usually get a solid like 30 to 50 resumes pretty quickly. So I can be pretty picky right away. So one of the first picky things I look for is I do look for, usually I'm not hiring for like a project manager. I'm not hiring for a senior role. I'm hiring for someone to do usually development work, because I usually do the design, or I'm looking for development, or like narration and video. So like maybe I'm looking for like those, and those are 3 specific skill sets, 3 different types of resumes I'm looking for. But what I'll do is I'll usually start out just looking for a master's in instructional design or instructional technology, that kind of thing, because that will probably eliminate 10 resumes of people that didn't have that. And then if there's a website, we'll start looking at like either if they have a portfolio link or just a description of projects, like that I can see that they've done stuff. They don't need to necessarily have the link on their resume. I just need to see that they've done development work before, or they've done video, or they've done audio. And then what I do is I call them up for the interview. I'll pick like the top, like 3 to 7 of them and do the phone Zoom interview. And during that, at that point, I need to see that they can do something. So that first run of the resumes, I'm not looking at 50 portfolios. Like, that's not happening. I'm going to narrow it down to like 7, maybe 10 max. if we're hiring like 3 people, I might look at 10 resumes and really narrow it down at that point. And then I'm going to go in and look at those portfolios and see what they've done. Um, you know, but it is a good thing to have. I just, I don't like it when people pigeonhole themselves to technology. So no, I don't give. So someone asked, do I give an assignment when I'm hiring? No, I don't give any type of assignment. I ask a lot of questions. I mean, I can tell in 5 minutes if someone can design and develop. The development's the easier part of ID. So I can tell right away by saying, what kind of projects have you worked on? What software have you worked with? In their language and what they're saying, you can tell right away if they can develop. And then I'll say, walk me through something you've developed, like a 2-minute piece or a 30-second piece. Just explain what you were doing when you did this. But I don't give them an assignment. I feel like that's tedious. I hate when I'm at an interview and someone asks me to do assignments. I've had to do that before. In fact, pretty much every job I've probably had, I'd say for most of them, I've had to do an assignment, and I really, really, really hated it because it's just a lot of extra work. And I feel like I can glean that information from someone without having them do that. So I don't give an assignment. I just want to see that they can do the stuff. I want to see that they can walk the walk and talk the talk. I want to see both of it. I've got to talk to them and hear what they say and what they sound like. Because if I'm having this person interact with my client, they have to be competent and they have to know what they're saying. And, one of the things about the portfolio is I don't like when people pigeonhole themselves into certain technology. Like they can only use Captivate and that's it, or Articulate on Captivate and that's it. I really like to see designers instructional designers that will look at the problem and try to determine what is the best technology to use for this project. Like it's okay to come into a project and say, I can do this in Articulate and Captivate, and that's what I know, but I think it's I really think they need a database for this project. I really think that they probably need to hire a programmer, and this is more of like a customized solution. I like designers that can come up with those kind of solutions for me and give me that kind of insight. Like, while it may not help them for that project, so I may say, you're right, we need to hire a programmer here and do this a little differently, take this on in a different way. It shows me that person is very competent in instructional design. I find some instructional designers, we're at this field where it's like, people just think that we just do e-learning. That's it, right? We just do e-learning. So they go to a client and say, here's what we're going to develop for you. Without hearing the problem, they're like, look, we're using Articulate or Captivate to develop. We have your solution. We haven't even heard your problem yet, but we have your solution. And it doesn't work like that. I never go to a client like that. I go to a client and I listen to them. I hear their problem. You might only have 30 minutes with a client before you have to give them a proposal, right? I mean, that's the reality of ID contract work, because you might only have a 30 to 60 minute conversation with someone and then they need a proposal. So you've got to really listen for that problem. But, I try to determine, I don't pigeonhole my company as a Articulate and Captivate company. I'd say yes, 90% of what we do is Articulate Rise and Captivate and Articulate. It is. And in fact, we mostly use Articulate. And right now, for the last 6 months, it's mostly all been Articulate Rise. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to always go that direction. Like if I have to develop, when I have to develop videos, I have a video team that I go to and we build videos for whatever training we're developing. I'm working on a project right now and it's a regular course. We're building a course in a learning management system. We don't need to use any e-learning stuff. We're building an actual like online course with a syllabus and a week's, unit structure. And so I always come in with different solutions, but that's why it's so important that while I love the portfolio, those design skills and being able to talk me through how do you get people to actually learn is so vital to me hiring you. It's one of the things I look at. Like, do they understand the concept of like acknowledging learners, getting their minds ready to learn? Do they understand the concept of presentation. Usually everyone focuses on the presentation. Like, I'm going to develop this, I'm going to develop that. Okay, well, how are you going to get your learners to learn it? I can just, if I'm just presenting content, I can give someone a Word document and say, read this, right? With pictures and words on it. And I can say, read this. If that's all you're doing, show me the point in your portfolio where they're learning. Where does the learning take place? Where does that, memorization happen? And then not only does the memorization of the content, where does that happen? But then how do you apply it and practice it, right? Because we have to do all of those. And a lot of times it's a simple generic like interaction that Articulate uses, and that's the memorization and the learning. And maybe that's okay. I'd have to look at the specific piece of training and determine and see what I think about it. Or maybe they can walk me through and just say, yeah, this is what the client wanted. That was all I had to develop with, right? I mean, that happens a lot where you can't do what you want because of client limitations, client budget, client schedule, all that stuff happens. I mean, we have projects like that where we don't necessarily think it's the best way to go about it, but hey, this is what the client gave us to work with. So we're doing, we told them the right solution, but they chose something a little differently. So, that happens a lot when you're developing stuff. I mean, I'm on projects. I'm on multiple projects right now, and I find that that's happening with several of our clients, where either their schedules just don't make sense. We don't have enough time to do what we want to do, or they just don't have the budget to pay us to do what we want to do. So it's not as nice as it should be. Not as nice for learning, I should say. It always looks nice. Making something look nice is the easy part, right? A pretty presentation doesn't sell me. It's the learning aspect within the presentation that sells me. I can hire a graphic designer to develop nice, cool stuff. I mean, we pay services for their images. We don't even develop the images anymore. We have like 5 different image banks online that I pull all of our images for our instruction from. Even a lot of short videos we can pull from in a lot of cases now. We don't even need to develop it anymore. We're starting for narrators. I'm starting to actually use the text to voice options in Articulate because they're not bad. And there's some other services out there where the text to voice options are actually decent enough to start to use them. Like AI is doing them, robotics, and is doing some really cool stuff. It's going to really impact the future of ID and make it a lot easier for us to develop, which is kind of cool. We're not going to have to rely on other people. But I mean, I'm actually in the search for, I just sent an email this morning for a narrator. I have 3 narrators going up for a contract. I just sent all their voices to the client to look for the training we're developing. So, there's obviously still a big need for that, and there's big money in narration. But so if you got a good voice, man, that's the job right there. You got a good voice and you've got contracts, man. It's big money. It's nice. I like that. I wish I could do that. That's just not in the cards for me. But narration's the easy part of ID, in my opinion, if you're good at it, if you have the voice and talent for it. Because I have all the equipment, I just don't have the voice for it. Video stuff is pretty hard. Game development stuff gets pretty hard. Although I'm working on a project right now for a client, and we are developing a game in Articulate. So yeah, it's kind of surprising how advanced of a game I can develop in something like Articulate or Captivate. So yeah, we're doing that right now. And yeah, so portfolio is crucial to getting a job. Where it falls in the process is going to depend on the company. So just some final words here. So, your portfolio, some people are going to just look at the portfolio first. It's going to be the main thing they look at. Some people, like me personally, I don't really look at the portfolio until you're narrowed down, or even during the interview. I want to see it on your resume that you can develop. So, there's this huge variation of where that needs to fall. So you should have a website. You should have some kind of link on your website for some kind of examples. That doesn't need to be this extensive 100 examples. I mean, even just having 1 or 2 examples might be good enough. For me and my company, what we just have screenshots of some of the things that we've developed and talk about it a little bit. And then we, if they wanna go further, we meet with them personally and walk them through stuff so that I can explain what's happening. I don't like them just going through my stuff, so they just get to see some screenshots, but they can tell, each situation is unique. For example, my situation, while they can't go through my materials other than seeing these screenshots, they can go look at my Captivate tutorial on YouTube and see that I can develop in Captivate. So they're not going to have, or Articulate or whatever it is. So they're not going to necessarily want to even, they don't really question that ever. I never have had the portfolio stop me from a project before. In my opinion, the hardest part, as soon as my foot's in the door, is the sales pitch. And making sure that I can make a client feel comfortable and confident and happy in their decision to hire me. That's what I find the hardest part is trying to make them feel confident. And it's not like I say sales like it's, like some selling some snake oil. That's not what I mean. I just mean like you gotta, you make the client feel happy and comfortable with making sure that you can actually do this project with them. Super important stuff. So that's the ID portfolio. It doesn't need to be too extensive. If you're in a graduate program, just use your projects, maybe clean them up, maybe just take some screenshots of them if that's all you want to do. If you don't have anything, you're not going to have a choice. You've got to just develop some stuff on your own. Pick some topics that relate to the types of jobs you might be trying to find, or some safe topics like human resources kind of things, project management, some safe topics that would be good regardless of where you're applying to, that everyone will see value in. Just create some short tutorials. I'd really encourage you to have both mobile and computer based. Pretty much every one of my clients, I don't think I have a client that doesn't, their learners don't prefer the mobile device for the training. So make sure, you're publishing both ways and showing what it looks like, because you've got to remember, a person hiring you might not understand that Articulate publishes both mobile and PC. Like, they don't all know that unless it's another ID hiring you. So show them that kind of stuff. And then be prepared during the interview to show them where the learning occurs in this. It's not just a presentation. This is also something that does learning. But yeah, that's about it. If anybody has any questions, feel free. You can always comment on my chats or send me a message or anything like that. Yeah, have a great day, everyone.